Hello Internet, and welcome to Ramblings of a Madman. I'm Alex, and I'm joined by Sean and Stuart for a shallow and probably uninformed dive into the world of unexplained mysteries, conspiracy theories, and the supernatural. Here we are again. It's episode 26, I think. 26?
Checked, but 26 is not bad, is it?
It's not bad, considering how infrequent we are on this show, but nonetheless. How are you guys doing on this fine May day?
It's back to good weather.
It's glorious outside.
It's nice, isn't it?
But you might hear a car go past every now and then because I'm not closing the window.
The sweat fest.
It's one of them. The amount of times I've heard that on podcasts and stuff like that when it's like, oh yeah, I've got the window open. I'm sorry if you hear it, but...
Then there's an ambulance.
Yeah, it's always an ambulance. It always is.
Yep, I've had some fun making this episode, I think, this week. I'm hoping it's one you don't know because I'd like to get your reaction to it. But I think you might know it because it's quite... it's quite in the forefront the last couple of years, so maybe. Okay. But
I'm notoriously unreliable at knowing these podcasts.
Yeah, you don't know anything, so
I know
nothing.
Won't know it. Yeah. Sean will be like, oh, actually, I know it back to front, left to right.
Yep. Actually, I've made a script for it already. I was going to do it next week.
Yeah.
Yep. So, as tradition demands, I will initiate the shilling.
Oh, yeah, here we go.
Here we go. If you like audio being pumped into your ears, you're in the right place because you're currently listening to a show which does that. We're available on pretty much everywhere that audio can be pumped into your ears on the internet. Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google, Amazon, all the good stuff. Leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, that's probably the best thing. And I also have a task for all the listeners out there this time. Since we're now allowed out free into the world, I challenge you to go out there and tell one person about our show. And then that will instantly double our viewers. If that makes sense, maths, right?
Make it two people. Two people's better.
Tell the whole street about our show. And then report back on Twitter or in the comments or wherever at Rome Podcast, ROAM Podcast. Okay.
Excellent.
My ears are lubed and ready for audio.
Perfect. It'll slide right in there.
May the pumping commence.
It begins.
Having travelled from Washington to British Columbia for a family holiday, a 12-year-old girl was wandering the beach on Jedediah Island, northwest of Vancouver. It was a warm day in August 2007 when she came across a man's Adidas shoe. Picking it up off the sand, she was surprised to feel that it was heavier than expected, so peered inside to get a closer look. Pulling back the sock, she found the remains of a human foot.
Oh.
Ooh.
Do you guys know where I'm going with this?
No, I don't think so.
John?
No.
No? Good, yes. Get your reaction. 6 days later, a couple was hiking on Gabriola Island, in the same area, where they also came across a shoe, a size 12 white Reebok. Seeing something white protruding out of the shoe, they kept their distance and poked at it with a stick. Flipping it over, they saw the rotting remains of a man's foot still encased within.
Oh,
8th of February, 2007. On Valdez Island, just a few miles from where the previous couple were hiking, another dismembered foot was found. Again a man's, and was nestled inside a size 11 Nike trainer. By this point, a large-scale investigation was underway, and the authorities were on the lookout for washed-up feet. And I bet you can guess what I'm going to say next.
They had a couple of guys with a foot in the grave.
If anything, the foot was out of the grave.
Yeah, but their other foot is in the grave. Carry on.
A fourth foot was discovered in May 2008 on an island in the Fraser Delta, once again safely tucked inside a sock and New Balance trainer, but this time a woman's.
Dun dun dun.
All the examples up to this point had been right feet, but number 5 bucked the trend. In 2008, June, floating in the water just off of West Ham Island was a man's left foot still inside a black size 11 Nike trainer. DNA testing revealed that this foot matched that of the third foot found in February 2007.
Oh god, that poor guy!
We've got matching feet. And I hope you're not getting sick of this yet, because I can go on all day. As of January 2019, 21 human feet have been found washed up in the Pacific Northwest.
Oh my god.
21.
I'm getting serial killer vibes.
And here you go. I will provide a map for you showing
thank God for
all
that.
of the feet.
I thought you were going to say something else. I provided a picture of 21 different ankle joints for you to look at.
I do have the pictures of the shoes if you want those.
Maybe later.
Yeah, I'm not going to go over all 21 because we'd be here all day. But you can see they're all sort of in the same area, nicely clustered together in this part of British Columbia.
Mm.
So this is west side of Canada, isn't it? Is that what the picture shows?
Yeah, the map shows a bit of the map of America zoomed in.
Yeah, I can see.
So what are you guys thinking? What's your first thoughts?
I'm thinking... So, I wasn't joking about the serial killer thing.
Mm-hmm.
It follows, like, the trend of a pattern or, like, a signature thing. But then the other side I'm thinking is, like, some kind of mafia or something. Like, the punishment is cutting off feet. So, like, in the Yakuza, they cut off sections of fingers as, like, payment back to the Yakuza or whatever, if they fuck up. So you do find ex-Yakuza members who have, like, half a pinky missing or something.
Like Assassin's Creed.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's more like a payment to show commitment. This is what I'm thinking is more of a punishment.
Mm-hmm.
But this, to me, is less of membership, like in the Yakuza. This feels more to me like actually offending someone or offending the group of people or doing something wrong against a group of people, because cutting off a pinky or sections of fingers, it's meant to not debilitate you too much, but cutting off someone's foot, that's massive.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, that it's quite a life-changing event, isn't it, to have your foot cut off?
Mm-hmm.
It might be really early OnlyFans. People just love feet.
Wait, so are they paying for the severed feet, or are people severing the feet on video for the subscribers?
I mean, you tell me, Alex.
I mean, I haven't got any of this down, so it's up to you. I think you're the first person who's ever come up with this theory. Well, it's a Stuart original.
It is a Stuart original.
It's not a good one.
No, it's not a good one, no.
Looking at the map, they're a couple of feet apart.
I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Ramblings and Madman podcast. I think we're done forever now.
No, cut that one out.
It's been nice.
We've peaked. We can't do any better than that.
Cut that one out.
I'm leaving it in. It's not happening.
No, yeah, that's got to stay in. I think the one of the staggering things about that picture is they all look like... So you said they're in a delta, right? So is that where a river meets a sea, or a sea meets land, is it?
Yeah, this is like a bit of... like an islandy bit of North America. So there's loads of little rivers coming out into the ocean. It's called the Salish Sea, this area.
Okay. Because it makes it look like it doesn't necessarily tell you where the foot was cut off. It just tells you that it ended up there. So, for example, if somebody was in the Pacific trying to cross from, let's say, Russia to get to Canada, where that close bit is on the globe when you spin it around.
Strait, right?
That's the one. If you had your foot cut off there, theoretically, it might bob its way over to there and collect. So, like, theoretically, there could be lots more of these that never made it to land and sunk or were eaten. Or it happened quite close. It's a bit weird to think that all of these were the primary site of the dismemberment of the foot based on the geographical spread.
Problem is with that theory, what you're saying is, you know, with Canada being close to Russia, the Earth's actually flat, so
that is true. They're not touching. Yeah.
So with that, like these guys and the women, you don't really have a leg to stand on.
How many more of these have you got? Can we get them all out of the way now?
I'm just thinking as I go, and they're not getting any better.
He's making a list as he goes, working his way down the bullet points.
But I just googled foot-related dad jokes.
Foot puns.
Anyway, sorry.
No, keep going. These are great.
No, I need more content. I need more cues. Keep going.
Yeah. So the first question I want to ask you is, why feet? Why not other body parts? You kind of already said maybe like a punishment, like a crime punishment or something like that, but I want your ideas. Throw them out there. Why not hands? Why not heads? Why not ears?
I have a theory, which is that could these have been points where people were shackled? So, for example, I'm thinking like traditionally, like obviously, like shackled with a ball and chain, it's wrapped around your ankle.
Well, I was thinking like Saw.
Well, yeah, or like in my head, I was thinking like, could they have got stuck in a bear trap, for example, and dismembered their foot for that reason?
There is Canada.
There are a lot of bear traps in the wilds of Canada, I'm assuming.
But that kind of thing, I'm wondering whether or not. So partly whether or not they could have been cut off in almost in accident rather than in error. But I suppose the other thing as well is the fact that they're all the same foot, though, would suggest that wasn't the case.
They're not all the same foot.
I thought there was one left foot.
So, of the first 5 I said, but generally it's a split.
Oh, okay. I was thinking in my head, like, if it was like, I don't know, like, did you say it was 19 in total?
21.
Oh, no. Oh, sorry, 21 by 2019.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was a mix of left and right feet.
Yeah, I'm just getting up the list now and scanning.
Okay, so you started off saying obviously it was just the left foot, right? But now the shoe's on the other foot.
I don't even...
that was a genuine. Oh, for God's sake!
Can we, Alex? Can you mute Sean for this episode? Me and you will just have a conversation.
I mean, you'll have to carry it, Stuart.
I'm not. To be honest, yeah, I need to stop because I'm not contributing anything. All I'm doing every single time you say something, I'm just thinking, what can I say next? What shit joke can I make up next? Right, no more foot jokes unless they're tasteful.
Can there be a tasteful foot joke?
Nah, we'll find one.
Look in the depths of your soul. Maybe you'll find one.
I'll find a joke somewhere, if the shoe fits.
My joke also went over everyone's head, but...
Wait, I missed your joke.
I said, look in the depths of your soul.
Oh, for God's sake.
Okay.
I'm just scanning the list. A lot of them don't say whether it's left or right, but I think it is a split generally. It might be more right feet, but not very much of a high percentage.
Yeah. I suppose, looking at these as well, there's a couple that are in very close proximity, but in the same time period. For example, there's 2 on the left. I think it's Vancouver Island and... does that say Port Hamilton? Is that what it says?
No, next to Vancouver Island is Port Renfrew.
So they're both very similar time of year.
Mm-hmm.
Same month.
Mm.
Do you have the whether or not they were right foot and left foot for those 2 days?
Those ones.
That's a good question.
February 20th.
Because it might have been the same person, yeah.
They do match. They are from the same person.
From the same person.
So so I'm going to say, so we don't know whether it's right or left foot, but it's both. It's both. Unless you had 2 right feet, yeah.
So one of the questions I have that's playing on my mind is the fact that we're actually talking about this means that obviously it's a mystery. So why hasn't anyone come forward and there is no joke coming up? Why hasn't anyone come forward? Because they've got no feet. Yeah, I was just, I stopped myself, but you had to lower the tone. Okay, so all these people must be dead, long story short. Because...
Why?
Right, so where are the people with missing feet? Why don't we know about them? Unless Alex hasn't answered that bit yet.
Well, possibly, but that's the other thing that I was saying about if it happened at sea and the feet ended up there. If there's a story about somebody that lost their foot in Russia, it's not going to necessarily make worldwide news, is it?
Well, just to go back on Sean's point of like, if it's criminals involved, you're not going to get involved with the police, are you? If you're a criminal yourself and you've been punished by whatever group.
Yeah, true.
It's like a thief wouldn't phone the police if a thief has been robbed by another thief.
Yeah, yeah.
Because they're just going to get in trouble themselves.
It's interesting as well that the fact that they all had sports trainers on, didn't they?
I was just about
They're
to
all
ask
wearing
that, yeah.
Adidas and Nikes and...
There is one or two which are hiking boots, but they're
Right.
all in some sort of shoe.
Specifically running shoes?
Mhm.
So maybe this serial killer, if there is a serial killer, is there a certain place in that area where people regularly go for runs?
It's a massive area, so imagine
It is an
yes.
enormous area, yeah.
But thinking like the way that everything's washing up doesn't necessarily... What I was going to say is that there's a bit of a concentration around that Vancouver area, but then someone's either dropping them specifically in certain spots so they wash up in certain bits, but they could all be done in one place, and depending on the current, the tide, I don't know exactly.
Yeah, say they were
how
all
it would
dumped
work.
at Victoria there in the centre. They could go off in 3 directions, couldn't they, depending on which way the current was going?
Well, yeah, so
You could kind of see that, couldn't you? Yeah.
Obviously, we don't know. You've got way more information, but this one's actually getting me quite a lot because
It's cool, isn't
It's
it?
also, they were all cut off at the same level, weren't they? So they all had their foot cut off with the foot still in the trainer at the ankle. It's not like one person was cut off below the knee.
There are a few, I think 1 or 2, which have some of the leg bones still attached.
Okay.
But it's definitely, the majority are at the ankle.
that's making me think more about. Sorry, Stuart. That's making me think more about what you said with the bear trap thing. But I don't think. Genuinely, bear traps that people have set up and they're catching people and then killing them.
Yeah, I mean, it might be a method, mightn't it?
Like if they know where people are going for runs, they're hiding them and stuff like that. People are just running through woods or forests or whatever. The one thing that I'm getting, I don't think any of this is accidental. It has to be intentional from the person doing it, because we would know it wouldn't be a thing. You wouldn't be finding random feet. If someone did it by accident, they accidentally fell into a bear trap and it cut their leg off. There wouldn't be a foot to find, in theory. It'd still be in the bed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it would still be in the trap, yeah.
If it was like, I'm also thinking like if it's, they were all found on, like washed up on beaches or shores or whatever, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So if it was a fish in the water, they were swimming, that's stupid, because why would they be swimming in trains?
Fish don't have feet.
That's not where I was going.
They definitely don't wear shoes. I don't know what fish you've seen.
I mean, that shut me up. No, I mean, if you got like a shark or something that's biting feet off. Well, no, but we're joking about it. But I'm
got
just
a taste for the
ruling
feet.
stuff out, right?
A taste for right feet.
I'm ruling it out.
Okay.
Thanks, Sean.
Unless either of you got an argument against it, I think all of this is intentional. Like someone's doing this on purpose.
Yeah, I think it sounds like it. I think the other thing that I'm thinking is it seems like a survivable injury. So getting your leg cut off at the ankle, in terms of blood loss and you surviving it, it seems much more likely for you to be able to survive your foot being taken off than the mid part of your leg. Because of the size of blood vessels, like it's easier to control a bleed from a smaller blood vessel. So the further away from the centre of your body, the smaller blood vessels get as well. So if it was a punishment, it potentially is a survivable punishment if it's a crime-based punishment. And if it's not a crime-based punishment and it's a shark that wears Nikes and bites people's right foot off, then that's just fortunate.
Just do it.
That's why they only take one. Well, actually, no. There's one place. I was going to say that if they only tuck one shoe, they just wear the other one on their dorsal fin or something. That's why they get rid of the second one.
Yeah.
They don't know what the shoes are for, so they put it on the fin.
Yeah, exactly. Right, we're getting off topic. No, going back to what I was saying, the reason I believe all of these people are dead is because no one's come forward.
Yeah.
I said it before, but no one's come forward about it. Like, surely this has been going on for 12 years? Was 2007 the first one?
2007, yeah.
Yeah, so it's 12 years this has been going on. Someone would have come forward saying, oh yeah, I was in that area, that's where my foot went. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Unless, obviously, it is a crime thing. I don't know. Like, in terms of the crime thing, in terms of them keeping quiet after, because they'd have their foot cut off as a punishment or whatever, but then they wouldn't come forward because then they'd be grassing or, they get themselves in more trouble.
Mm-hmm.
So I get that, but that still doesn't feel like it's right either. I feel like they genuinely have been killed, and it's either a serial killer or just a gang that does this as a punishment.
Yeah, okay, so I'll try and answer the question I posed of why it's specifically feet. So if you imagine you've got a body submerged in water, and it's being transported by the current, there's sort of two ways that you can be left with just feet. First would be if, like, sea creatures are breaking it down.
Mm-hmm.
But if you've got feet in shoes, it would be protected from being scavenged.
Yeah.
So you'd just be left with the feet. And another way is that the joints tend to be weaker in the body, so they'll sort of naturally disarticulate because of the wave action and the currents and stuff. So you'll have, like, the hands and feet pop off from the body in a lovely way to say that. But the hands will probably sink to the bottom of the ocean because they're heavier than water. But because the feet are in flotation devices, i.e. shoes, they'll sort of float away and then they'll be washed ashore. Trainers are pretty buoyant as well, so they could travel long distances.
Right, so you're saying long distances only relative to this, because it's still got to be intentional, because it's only this area. You know what I mean? It's not worldwide that this is happening, so there must be someone or a group of people doing this specifically in this area.
Yep. But in terms of why it only started in 2007, it could be that there's some gang doing it, like you're saying, or a serial killer or something like that. Or it could just be the fact that the material shoes are being made of has changed, and they're now really, really buoyant. So this might have happened in the past a lot, but because the shoes would just sink to the ocean floor, we wouldn't find them washed up.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So you're suggesting that people are bodies are being dumped or drowned?
I'm suggesting that if you've just got a body submerged in water for whatever reason, whether that's an accident or deliberately being drowned, but this is the process by which you can just be left with feet from that body.
Okay, I completely understand that, but again, why isn't that happening all over the world? Because people might drown or get drowned all over the world. Why is it only this area?
I mean, it might just be overblown by media coverage.
I disagree.
Okay.
I disagree. I think if it was worldwide, we'd know about it. It might be more of a common thing in this area for whatever reason, but I really don't think it would be. I don't think it's that.
Okay.
I think it's people having their feet cut off for whatever reason.
Yep, so that kind of explains why it's specifically feet. But the big question we've got now is, how do the bodies get into the water in the first place? So I've got a number of theories about why there can be this happening in this specific area. So the first theory proposed, and this was by the detectives after the first 5 feet were found. So this is like the initial investigation that they did. And they thought that these feet were from the victims of a nearby plane crash. So in 2005, a small plane carrying 5 passengers plummeted into the water just off of Quadra Island, which is 60 miles northwest of Jedediah Island. So it's basically northwest off of the map I gave you by a bit.
Yeah.
And so they're thinking that perhaps the feet could have been severed in the collision and carried southwest by the Salish Sea, or the bodies could just be submerged in the water and then naturally broke down, as I explained before.
Yeah.
Those two theories line up much better. Like what you were saying about the way that they'd sever just decomp and stuff like that. That's really interesting. And it would make sense why it's only in that area. And they might all be wearing like running shoes and stuff like that because they were on a plane, and sometimes that's like comfy shoes and stuff.
Did it explain the whose feet they found? As in, did it make sense by the sex of the people involved?
It was plausible at first, this theory, but once they discovered that the fourth foot was a woman's, it ruined it because all of the people in the plane were male.
Okay.
And also, good question. And also, it doesn't explain why there's now 21 feet found in the following years.
Yeah. I suppose, it doesn't.
That is like quite dark, though, that theory. Obviously, it's just...
I mean, the whole thing's dark. These are severed feet washing up.
Yeah, true, but...
being found by 12-year-old children.
You've got this plane wreck... Oh, yeah, true. But you've got this plane wreck underneath the water that's slowly, like, depositing feet.
Oh, I was mid-drink.
Spit take it.
The image of a plane just spitting out feet underwater.
They're actually foot smugglers, and they've crashed.
Oh god. But a lot of these feet still haven't been identified, so some of them could be from this accident. We're not sure.
Okay.
So it doesn't completely rule it out.
There's still 16 feet. Well, potentially 15 feet, isn't it? If several feet are from the same people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Be happy with that?
Yeah.
Sound reasonable?
Yeah.
What about try and think of events, water-related events that can cause a large amount of deaths? Tsunami, yeah.
Sharknado.
So what about the 2009 epic Sharknado? Was it 2000? I'm going to have to check if it was 2009.
I don't think you need to fact check this.
Sharknado. 2013. What about the 2013
there was 3 films,
epic
right?
Shark? Yeah, but the others don't count. The first one's the best one.
I mean, I don't think it was Sharknado, Alex.
He chops a shark in half with a
limb
chainsaw mid-air.
That is true.
It is true. Yeah, but what about the Boxing Day tsunami in 2004 and the Japanese tsunami in 2011?
Yeah.
So
potentially.
The Boxing Day one killed 227,000 people, which is a lot of people. I didn't realise before I looked this up how many people it actually was. And the Japanese one killed 19,000. And most of these people haven't been recovered. Or not most, many. The most have been, but many of them haven't been. So if we've got loads of bodies being carried in the ocean, they could just be broken down again and left their feet. And then it could be transported all the way through the Pacific and then found their way into the Strait of Georgia.
Yeah, I'm still going back to the fact that you'd find them all over the world. Yeah,
you might, but if it's places like Indonesia and Korea and places like that on the Pacific Ocean...
the Japanese one, you'd find it around Indonesia and stuff like that, though.
Yeah, I'm just saying that maybe their media coverage isn't as explosive as in North America.
Maybe,
there are also are there parts of the Pacific that are still undiscovered? There might be an island somewhere that's literally got 227,000 pairs of feet.
Oh, God.
Jesus Christ.
We call it Nike Island. Sponsored by Nike. I mean, I don't think there's places that are necessarily undiscovered, but there's places which aren't habited in the Pacific. Okay,
I understand the media coverage thing, but then you've got Korea, China, Japan, Australia.
Yeah, but I mean, these eastern places, they might be more reserved with their media coverage and they don't want to be thrown
Australia.
Out these... Not necessarily Australia, but places like Japan and Korea and Indonesia.
And Russia, yeah.
And they might just be we don't want to tell people about feet washing up. It's kind of...
But also, why this specific part of America? Why not the whole west coast of America? Why not Alaska?
Well, this is kind of like a sort of bit trap in it, isn't it? Because you can see there's one way in and one way out. So if they're floating in, they might just get stuck in there. Because of the currents?
Yeah, I still think you're stretching.
Yeah, I definitely am stretching. That's my job.
That's what we do on
the show, yeah. But speaking of currents, the currents kind of discount the theory, because according to the research I've done, the currents in the Strait of Georgia tend to exit rather than enter. Mm-hmm. So things don't usually get pulled into the strait rather than they get pushed out.
Mhm.
So it seems more likely that these feet are from local nearby places in British Columbia. Also, the feet that we have identified, the few feet that we have, I think we've done 10 feet through DNA testing. We know who they're from.
Okay.
None of these people are residents of Indonesia or Japan.
Okay.
Okay.
Where are the residents
Where are
of
they?
then?
Yeah.
British Columbia, as you guess.
Okay. So they are local then.
Mm-hmm.
That would lean more towards involvement with gangs. But it'd
Would.
also lean towards there being a serial killer that's not necessarily targeting locals, but because locals are in the area, they're just...
Preying on them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll move on to criminals. That's my third theory. You guys must know of the thing where, like, the mafia ties your feet to a heavy object and sinks you to the seafloor or a lake or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, if they're doing that, surely, like, the weight would wear away the ankle and then the feet would float off.
Mm.
Yeah, but wouldn't the body pop off as well?
Well, the body might sink because it's not in a floaty shoe,
Yeah, I suppose.
safely nestled away in a
Is there not
size
much
11.
more? Would they not take? I don't know. I was trying to think if they were to do that, would they not take their shoes off? Because like the original thing is like putting blocks of concrete on their feet, isn't it, and then drowning them, or tying rocks or a heavy object of some kind, like a masonry.
I mean, why would you take their shoe off if you're just going to tie something around their ankle?
Well, that's true.
Well, I was thinking that, like tying something around one of their ankles, and then would bodies float? Or
Well,
over
for a
time, would they
bit.
become less buoyant?
Wait,
I think as they sort of like fill up with gas while they're decomposing, they float, but then
Right,
they,
okay.
then they
They
sink
sink.
once they're sort of like
The other thing,
turn and
in terms
skeleton.
of the question about would you take their shoes off, it may just be that they usually would take their shoes off, and these happen to be 21 examples of people whose shoes weren't taken off, and that's why they were more buoyant as they separated. And that might be why the norm is not to find the feet, because actually they're not in something
Then
buoyant.
I'm
But these are
thinking
anomalies.
if there's that many people dying, why isn't this getting reported?
But it's only 18 cases over, what,
12 years.
12 years?
12 years.
I understand that, but it's not that big of an area in terms of them being able to...
Well, what's the population of Vancouver?
quite a lot.
I don't know, but it's kind of like concentrated around these cities, right? And there's loads of remote areas between them because it's very like mountainous and foresty.
So the population of Vancouver is 675,000 people. So to imagine,
Yeah, but that's in the
18
city.
people.
But like outside of it, it's pretty remote, right?
Right, so I agree with what you're trying to say. Like, the population's massive, it's quite a big area. But then if someone goes missing, family members, all that sort of stuff will report it.
Provided that there's an innocent explanation, though.
Right, if these feet are getting found, I'm going off the fact that they're being killed. So that means they're going missing.
Okay, yeah, agreed. But they're only going to be reported missing if they don't already assume what the reason is that they've gone missing. If they're involved in crime, people aren't going to volunteer that their relative's gone missing. What they're going to do is go, my relative's gone missing, we're involved in crime. It's probably involved in crime. I won't spout my mouth off because then I'll be next.
Or what if they're part of a cult?
A creepy foot-based cult.
Well, no, that would make sense. Like, like Heaven's Gate or something like that. With like suicide pacts and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I'm stretching a bit maybe, but it would make sense in theory because it's localized to one area. They're either deaths or the fact that they've gone missing isn't a massive part of this, unless you're admitting that information. To be fair, but well, actually, there you go. There's the question: have you left out so far that there have been people going missing?
No, I haven't.
Okay,
Not that I'm aware of, anyway.
Yeah, it would make sense that it's a voluntary thing. Whether they die or not, it would make sense that it's a voluntary thing,
Yeah. And then why would only 3 of the people have both their feet cut off?
they
They're
really
committed.
got into it, yeah.
Or maybe they're getting bionic feet.
So this is a government conspiracy.
I'll take the stunned silence.
I didn't know what to do with that
confirmation
information, to be honest.
No. It's just the way that, like, the February 2016 person obviously had their feet done, presumably at the same time,
Done.
if not
Like they're
very
getting a haircut.
quickly. Yeah. So, like, what if it was a cult? Why was it suddenly different to all the previous ones?
Yeah, okay.
But then also not carried on from that, because the January 2019 one on the far right is only
Well,
1 foot.
it could be that everyone, I think we mentioned it in the past, it could be that everyone actually had both their feet cut off. It's just we've only found...
One in most cases.
It's one in most cases because we've only found those. The others have stayed not floating. And then why specifically are they sticking them in the water?
They could just make their way into the water naturally.
Actually, I
over
think
years.
we should be asking more questions on how they were cut off. Because you said that some of them were like leg bones were still attached and stuff like that. That tells me that it's not voluntary.
Most of them are too decomposed to tell whether
Okay.
they've been cut off or not.
So, how old were the shoes compared to when they were found? Are we talking like...
That's a good question. I actually don't know.
I think that's a good point, because if they were from... Like, if there was a shoe that Reebok released after that plane crash, for example,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
would
I
rule
can
out
confirm
the plane. That would rule out that it was a plane crash or whatever.
You'd have to specifically look at each case, which I haven't done. But I think the majority of the shoes are more modern, because that's why they're more buoyant.
Yeah, so that's what I'm thinking then, that it's not going to be something necessarily that, although it is all these are spread over the course of 12 years, it's not something that happened 30 years ago.
No, I think going back to the 2004 tsunami would probably be the furthest back an event you could apply to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have we considered it that it might have just been a really elaborate marketing ploy for trainers?
I mean, I wouldn't put it past capitalism.
No, it's true.
Just
how buoyant is the new Nike shoe?
Billy from Indonesia got fired from his job, and they offered him one last gig.
I can't wait to see where this is going.
Well, just let us have your feet to advertise your shoe, and then you're set off for life.
Well, he didn't grow 21 pairs of feet, did he?
No, they've done it 11 times.
Okay.
They had 11 Jimmies, and they bought them all a wheelchair.
Jimmy changed name halfway through.
What did I say?
Swear he started as Billy, didn't he?
Yeah. And you said one of them was female as well, so Jamela.
Jamela,
I don't know.
Insert generic child name. Yeah, I'm steering it back to criminal activity. I checked, and British Columbia has the third highest crime rate in Canada. So there are a lot of criminals sort of doing no-good-nick things around this area. Another thing that I was thinking of as well is, what about human trafficking? And if you've had an accident moving a lot of people by a boat, and then they all drowned, then you could have a lot of popped off feet in that case.
Yeah.
Well, this is the second question then, in terms of the decomposition. When they were found, were they all found with varying degrees of decomposition? Because if you're saying that it was one boat where they had this accident...
Well, it might not just be one boat, it might just be over the course of 12 years they've had 3 or 4 accidents moving people. All the feet might not be from the same event as well. Some might be from this plane crash, some might be from a serial killer, some might be from
but then
lead weight on the feet.
Going down that line of thinking just brings me back to, why isn't it worldwide? Does that make sense?
It's a good question, yeah. And the only answer I can give you is media coverage.
Yeah, and
it's dubious.
Really
I'll agree, it's dubious. One thing that can rule out criminals in it, though, is that the people which we have identified from their feet are unlikely to have been involved in criminal activity.
Okay.
It's kind of out of the norm, but bystanders sometimes do get involved in criminal activity, though. Maybe they saw too much and then they had to be...
Yeah, as witnesses or something.
Yeah, taken care of.
Or maybe they just went into, like... Because like you said, there's a lot of cities, but then there's obviously... There'll be a population in between cities and there'll be random towns that are maybe a bit more disconnected.
Mm-hmm.
So I am thinking that it could not necessarily be a gang, but it could be... And when I say a cult, I don't mean like what we discussed before, where it's a voluntary thing. It might just be a cult that takes in travellers, like a religious cult or something. I'm thinking GTA 5. You know, when you get hired by that cult, I can't remember what they're called, and they hire you to pick up people in the car, and then they pay you for dropping people off. And then I never actually finished the
and then
story
they cut off
for
the
it.
feet.
Well,
throw them in the ocean.
no, but what if they do? What if... Ooh, cannibals.
Ooh, cannibals.
Ooh, cannibals.
That's a sentence I thought I'd never hear today. Ooh, cannibals.
Hang on. No, but...
Are feet the worst part of the human body to eat? Is that are we going to discuss that now? Because if they're cannibals and they've left the feet...
There's no muscle. Too lazy to untie the shoelaces. Huh?
Nothing quite like a good shank. Slow roasted shank.
It's going to be a bit general, but I mean, these are North Americans. They might have lots of foot meat.
Oh, God.
Oh, look, Sean started this, not me.
I've ended it.
Okay.
Okay, not cannibals.
Not cannibals. Let's move on to serial killers. They're less disgusting.
Let's just defend an entire... Yeah. You know, we're becoming a popular podcast or whatever when we start, like, either accidentally or intentionally slagging off different nationalities and stuff.
What about a sinister foot-based serial killer?
Yeah, that was my first.
Yeah, we've talked about it a bit already. But a specific one that I found is... have you ever heard of the Smiley face killers?
No, I don't think so.
No.
So, from the late 1990s to the 2010s, the early 2010s, there were a number of young men found dead in bodies of water across the US. And a theory goes is that they didn't accidentally drown, as concluded by law enforcement, but they were all killed by a serial killer or a group of serial killers. The term smiley face became connected to the murders because graffiti depicting a smiley face was found near locations where the killer had dumped the bodies. And this was in at least a dozen other cases. So the name sort of stuck with it. There's supposedly 45 deceased males connected to this theory, whose bodies were all found in water, often after leaving parties or bars where they'd been drinking. This theory, conducted by 2 retired police officers, is not taken seriously by many forces who investigated the deaths, because they're kind of like, these are like the rogue vigilante police officers who don't go by the book. Nice. But it could have some merit to it. Maybe.
Did any of those cases have anything similar in terms of the finding of the feet from them being submerged in a body of water?
No. That's the problem with it.
But in general, though, the serial killer thing it's a pattern, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a clear pattern.
If you just have a serial killer killing people by drowning them, then it couldn't result in just the feet being left.
Or specifically, like Saw, going back to that, keeping people chained up. And then, I don't know, or the bear trap thing. the bear trap serial killer. Like,
I don't think they'd have a very high hit rate, the bear trap serial killer.
Depends on how many bear traps you put down.
Sure.
But this is the thing, there's a low hit rate, because they've only had 21 over the space of 12 years.
I mean, that's quite a high hit rate for a serial killer.
Is it?
I think
Wasn't Jack the Ripper only over the course of like a couple of months?
Yeah, but he had it easy mode. It was back in the 1800s.
That is true.
There was no DNA testing. There was no cameras.
Back in easy mode time for serial killers.
Yeah. If you want to be a serial killer, you want to be further back in time as you can.
Yeah, true.
Preferably Stone Age serial killer. They had the easiest. Between mammoth hunts Just bop someone on the head with a club. There's no laws. You can do what you want.
I can't argue with that, actually.
It's perfect theory.
Go on, what else you got?
Regarding this out there smiley face murder theory, though, the FBI did make a statement on it in 2008, and they said, to date, we have not developed any evidence to support links between these tragic deaths or any evidence substantiating the theory that these deaths are the work of a serial killer or killers. The vast majority of these instances appear to be alcohol-related drownings. So the FBI don't think this is the work of a serial killer.
Sounds like a cop-out to me.
It does.
No pun intended. No, no. Because if it was just drowning,
it's a PR thing they've put out.
Yeah. I think if it was just alcohol-related drownings, accidental, then why isn't it happening all over the world again?
Yeah,
like people might accidentally
it definitely does.
But then if it's a alcohol-related drowning, why aren't there missing reports of people going missing?
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Yeah, because like people drown in Manchester all the time in the canal network. Like loads of missing people in Manchester end up being found in the canal network. Like people that go missing.
And it just doesn't get reported on because it's not an amazing story to.
Well, no, it's not.
But often they just don't find their bodies. But then, like something like a foot bobbing on the surface will be what makes them trawl a particular set of canal. I feel like something similar has happened like that recently, actually.
Are we onto something?
What, it's canals?
No, like is the foot thing more common than it actually is?
I mean, again, I've said it might just be media coverage. It might be more common than we think. There's arguments on both sides.
Completely, yeah, because I can't turn around and say, no, that's 100% not true. But I don't think we'd be having the conversation of if it's common or not, if it was common. Because we have, Manchester, Liverpool's got, rivers and tunnels and all that sort of stuff. You've got loads of big cities that have either canals or rivers going through them. Accidental drownings happen. Why aren't feet being found? How come there's 21 cases of 21 feet found over the course of 12 years in this specific place? Why just this specific area? Why not further out? You know what I mean? And why are people only looking in this area? Over the course of 12 years, why haven't people started looking elsewhere and started recording feet just being found? If it was a common thing. I get what you're trying to say. I get it. But I'm not buying it at all.
Okay, so I'll move on to the last theory. And like the one we did before, the Hollingwell one, this is the assumed theory put forth by the authorities. So that there is assumed, yeah. Because nothing's 100%, but this is what the authorities think is going on with all these feet washing up. So the prevailing theory by the authorities is that the feet have naturally been removed from drowning victims. Apparently finding dead bodies in the ocean is quite common, and suicides and accidental drownings happen fairly frequently in populated areas with a lot of waterways. Most of the victims who have been identified, so most of those 10, which we know who they are, suffer from depression or mental health issues. And also the 4th and the 7th feet were concluded to belong to a woman who jumped from a bridge in April 2004.
Oh wait, okay. And it's accepted that she died during that incident and her foot...
She definitely committed suicide in 2004 by jumping from a bridge.
Okay.
Yeah. So they're saying that these people have either committed suicide or they've been involved in boating accidents and happened to drown.
I guess this is why you're quite hooked on the media coverage thing then.
Yeah.
You've actually got proof
I've been warped by investigating this over the past week. I did say before, many of the feet are too decomposed to analyse, but despite that, none of them have shown any tool marks or signs of being manually severed. Now, that's not to say that some of them haven't been severed, but the ones that we can analyse don't show any of that.
Okay.
And the last thing I'll say is that why is this happening more recently? Why has this become more common after 2007? Yeah. Either we've had a sudden influx in suicides near water or boating accidents, or as I've reiterated a number of times, people might just be more aware of this happening. So the availability heuristic is the tendency to assume that the probability of something happening based on how many examples readily come to mind. So if you're aware of a lot of feet being washing up in an area over recent years,
you'll be more to look out for it.
You'll be on the lookout for it, yeah.
Okay.
And therefore the media will be on the lookout for it specifically as well.
To be fair, this is actually worrying me a bit because it's nothing to do with water, but I did drive past a shoe.
Oh, you should have poked with a stick and have a look.
Yeah.
Well, what if there's a foot in it?
There might be.
There might be.
You'll have to go back and check.
Oh, I don't want to.
I think the difficulty about the accepted conclusion is arguing, like, very new arguments against the information there. So, like, obviously we've kind of joked around and argued about the various things that explain each point as we go through. But, like, there is an element of one of those examples, somebody's known to have committed suicide, using people's history of mental health problems after the fact to say, oh, they probably just killed themselves, or an assumption that there was a boating accident without necessarily any major profile of a boating accident, unless I misheard you and you said that there was like a news article about it. It all seems to make links where there just might not be.
Yeah, it's definitely a case of making links for the sake of trying to solve the mystery, right?
It's almost like giving the families a conclusion and being like, the story that's in the media at the moment about that foot being found, it actually turns out it was from your relative. Like, that's going to be a bit weird. Like, imagine that. Like, some of these people might have been dead, I don't know, maybe 10 years, and then suddenly they find their foot and DNA track it to them and be like, oh yeah, by the way, I know you've buried your family member, but they were missing their foot. Like, it's, I don't know, it's a bit...
Yeah, and the problem with just having a foot is that they have to be in the police database already to have the DNA match from them.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so they either need to have found the body previously, or... So that makes sense why that the woman who's found, the one who jumped off the bridge, it makes sense because they would have identified her.
Yeah.
But did they know... I wonder with that case whether or not... Well, I was about to make a really stupid question then. I wonder when they found her body whether her feet were missing. Obviously, her feet had to have been missing. They didn't put them
but they might not have found
afterwards.
her body as well. To be fair.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that is true.
I mean, like,
it might be
the
CCTV
officers or CCTV. Yeah, that's a good point because I was thinking more like someone found her on a bridge and tried to talk, and then she jumped or whatever. But it makes sense with CCTV if she was seen walking up to a place. If it could even be family members or friends knowing, yes, she was definitely wearing those shoes, or those were her favourite pair of shoes, or something like that. So there's definitely ways. It doesn't. I'll take back what I said about being on the police database, but there has to be some kind of identifiable thing, and the shoes would be part of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in terms of that woman specifically, I don't know whether they found her body or whether they had eyewitness reports of her jumping, but the information just said that they know she jumped from the Patterlow Bridge in New Westminster in April 2004. The first foot they found, the remains were identified as those from a missing man suffering from depression. So it's this sort of thing in all the cases where it's like, this is a missing person who had this mental illness.
Yeah, and I suppose, like you said, it's availability. If you were sadly low enough to be suicidal, the fact that you've got readily available water means that water will probably be your first thought. Like if you've got access to a gun might be your first go-to. Water might be their first go-to if they've always lived around Vancouver, for example.
Yep. And again, with that, what you were saying, that theory could apply to that as well. So if they know that there's places around there that are where people are regularly committing suicide, then they might have that in their head as well.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because there's quite a cluster, isn't there, in 2008, like November. Yeah.
Yeah. I imagine the distribution though is more due to the currents in the area.
Yeah.
Because I'm picturing most of the people being in the northwest and then the feet floating down southeast with the currents.
Yeah, that would make
and that's
sense.
why a lot of them are in that West Ham Island area, because that bit sticks out and they'll get trapped there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so final thoughts. Do you agree with the authorities? Do you think it's a serial killer? What do you reckon, Stuart?
I mean, it's really difficult. It is really difficult. It's quite easy to just go along with the accepted theory. And I think on the balance of probability, it probably is the most likely thing. There is definitely part of me that wonders about human trafficking and crime-related things, and whether or not they've just been a series of things related. Or rather, that was the thing that I was thinking of most prominently. But then when you talked about the fact that most of them they were from British Columbia, and they all had like various histories of mental health disorders, but they're locals. Unless they were involved in human trafficking themselves and happened to die whilst trafficking other people, actually that theory doesn't really make sense at all, because it doesn't explain that obviously they're not being trafficked. So it kind of does bring you back to the...
You're doing it all wrong, Joe. We traffic the people.
Not yourself.
Yeah. Why are you cutting your foot off? Come on. Get your head in the game.
It does. It does kind of close the loop in the sense that it probably is just simply explained by either these people are either got involved in something they shouldn't have and been killed for it, for maybe a spattering of them, but then definitely I just think it just sound like suicide and the natural events that we've talked about in terms of decomposition for why the feet particularly have shown up and not anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Alex, what do you think?
Yeah,
do you
I
agree
pretty much
with it?
Yeah, as Sean said before, I've been swayed by doing the research for this. I kind of just agree with the police. But I do wonder if some of these people are from this plane crash.
Yeah, I forgot about the plane crash, yeah.
Because it's the same area, the current seems to be going the right direction.
Yeah,
It's
and
around
you said
the right time.
The current always exits right as well, so it does make sense.
Yeah. It flows from the northwest in that curve around and exits. I don't think any of them will be from the tsunamis, because I think it's too far, and based on how the currents work in this area, then they won't be being transported into the sea. Some of them might be from criminal acts. I think it's a mix. I don't think it's all from suicides and stuff, but I think the majority are.
Yeah.
But there might be one or two that were involved in criminals, or one or two might be from this plane crash or whatever.
Yeah. I think, actually, on what you said then, looking back at the map that you've done, the very bottom right-hand ones would have to have come off current and gone down a new current all the way to the bottom. You wonder if maybe the outliers, those are completely separate, and then the rest of them are explained by plane crash or suicide.
Mm-hmm. Or the currents might just be weird down there.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
Little rivers and stuff.
Yeah, there's plenty of access points, isn't there? Mm-hmm. Sean, go on.
Yeah, at the start, I was adamant that it was a serial killer, it was completely intentional, stuff like that. And
I was assuming when I first heard this story as well.
Yeah, but literally that last thing that was proven, one of the pairs of feet was that girl who killed herself. Now I'm thinking, well, is it media coverage? Does this happen more often? We just don't know about it. And to be honest, I was adamant that, obviously when I started, adamant that they were dead. Going against that now, because, if they didn't have any feet, how would they be able to kick the bucket?
Oh, for God's sake! All episode, we waited for that joke.
It wasn't worth it.
It wasn't.
No.
Oh, come on!
Ramblings of a Madman is currently available on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, Podbean, Spotify, and YouTube. All the links are available on Twitter at Roan Podcast. That's ROAN Podcast. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.